What if events went differently? What if the 2007 Venom from Spider-Man 3 had been in the Spider-Man No Way Home film? How would Venom from Spider-Man 3 impact the MCU as a whole? Would Venom significantly impact the story? And could the MCU Peter Parker handle him? After this video was long requested, I thought I needed to deliver this what if Topher Grace's Venom was in the MCU. That being said, let's dive right into this Marvel's what if. The events of Spider-Man No Way Home have been playing out the same as in the original timeline. With Peter Parker being unmasked by Mysterio as Spider-Man, the city has been ruining his life, from J. Jonah Jameson to the public believing that Spider-Man to be a murderer. Parker seemed lost and broken. Once he learned that MIT wouldn't send his friends to school because of his actions as Spider-Man, Peter started getting depressed. Having MJ and Ned arrested for helping Spider-Man stop the drone attacks in London, they were brought in for questioning. Peter felt terrible about himself, how he was irresponsible. Because of this, Peter thought of an idea. He knew that he needed to end this before things got worse for himself and maybe fix his Peter Parker Spider-Man problem. Peter decided to go to the Sanctum Sanctorum to meet with Dr. Stephen Strange. Strange told Parker that there was a spell that could forget that people knew Peter is Spider-Man, and explained that he couldn't go back in time because of the time stone being destroyed by Thanos earlier. Realizing that Parker only had one chance, Strange decided not to listen to Wong and performed the spell. As Strange started casting the spell, Parker interrupted it by asking Dr. Strange to remember that some people in his life, like Ned, Aunt May, and MJ, would still remember that Peter is Spider-Man. Dr. Strange demanded for Peter to stop tampering with the spell, as it can reverse and damage the multiverse. Our brand new timeline would start here. As Strange was casting the spell, something happened as the original timeline. Somewhere in another universe, another Peter Parker fought off his demons by remembering with great power comes great responsibility, ripping apart an alien symbiote to save himself and his future. Parker took the symbiote, throwing it away, fleeing the scene. At the same time, Eddie Brock of this universe has been down in the dumps after seeing his ex-girlfriend Gwen Stacy go with Parker to a jazz club. Because of this, he decided to go to church. At the church, Eddie was shocked. Peter, the man who had taken his job and girl away from him, had been the famous Spider-Man all this time. Thinking of getting pictures for the Bugle, Eddie was stopped by a black substance that started coming down the bell where Peter was screaming. Eddie knew that he needed to leave the scene, but before he could, the substance continued to attach to him. Bonding with Eddie, he screamed in pain, but was silent. Parker had left the church and he left behind one of his worst enemies. Eddie tried throwing up the symbiote and it went down his face into his body. But after feeling the power, Eddie knew everything. The symbiote started showing him Peter's life when he fought Green Goblin, Harry Osborn, when he met MJ, and when Peter's Uncle Ben had died. Eddie declared himself Venom. The symbiote wanted revenge and Eddie wanted revenge too. Eddie knew what he needed to do and that his goal was to bring down Spider-Man once and for all. But with the help of Flint Marko, if Venom could gain that help, he would be steps closer to defeating and killing Parker for what he did to him. Before Venom could think of anything, he looked out the window of the church and heard booming sounds. The symbiote was confused and told Eddie that something was happening. Eddie asked the symbiote what was going on, and Venom fell to the ground drained. He looked outside the church, seeing that it was a bright sunny day out, but before the weird stuff happened, it was raining outside. Eddie knew that something was amiss and decided to go outside as Venom. Venom went outside and changed back into Eddie Brock's form. He saw people at the church as the music started playing. He bumped into somebody who dropped a bunch of papers. Eddie ran out of the building, knowing that something was off. Maybe he was dreaming all of this time. Venom spoke to Eddie in his head, telling him that he might have ended up in another reality, as symbiotes have a hive mind. They can sense one another. The symbiote said another symbiote could be around, but that didn't matter. What mattered was to get home, taking revenge on Spider-Man. Eddie panicked and questioned the voice in his head, telling the voice to stop talking before they were both interrupted by a massive TV screen. Eddie was shocked to see J. Jonah Jameson, but it wasn't his J. Jonah Jameson, as the one he knew had a set of hair. Eddie looked around, seeing people of this world, but they were different. They were dressed differently. J. Jonah Jameson started talking about how Peter Parker, the wanted criminal known as a murderer, Spider-Man. Eddie was shocked to hear the news, seeing a photo of Peter Parker on the screen. He knew that the symbiote wasn't lying and that he jumped into a new universe. Eddie's grin became bigger as this Peter Parker had been humiliated and broken. He was glad to hear that Peter Parker was facing what he's been for all this while, a public menace. But now the powers of the symbiote, Eddie thought to himself, maybe he could still take revenge on Peter Parker. Even if it wasn't his version of Spider-Man, with one less Spider-Man around, it would make his life easier. At the same time, Doctor Strange stopped the spell, explaining to Peter that there's nothing that can be done. He was genuinely sorry he couldn't help him more, but because he messed with the spell, he couldn't perform it correctly. Parker dismissed it. He told Strange that he was happy he tried to help, but revealed he didn't even ask MIT about the situation. Strange was dumbfounded. He screamed at Parker, telling him he could have at least tried to get in contact with them. Peter didn't know what to think, but he was kicked out and he left the Sanctum Sanctorum to find the lady from MIT. If he could see her, maybe Ned and MJ could still go to school. At the same time, Venom had been training around the city. Eddie learned how to web swing with the symbiote, training until he knew he was ready to face off with Spider-Man of this world. Spider-Man swung to the bridge like the original timeline, but unlike what happened when he met the lady begging her to change her mind, this time someone else would attack Parker. Peter's spider sense didn't go off as a black goo went on his hand. He started to panic as people screamed running away. They got out of the cars and they didn't know where it was coming from. But before Parker could think, Venom had tracked Peter down to the bridge using the symbiote's powers. Parker fell backwards, putting his Iron Spider suit on quickly. Venom screamed in Peter's face. Parker was confused, but asked who he was. Venom told Spider-Man that he was Venom. Peter didn't know what to think, but before he could do anything, Venom used his webs on the lady's car door, pulling it off, hitting Parker towards before the edge of the road. The train was down below. Peter tried to fight back, but any move was countered by Venom. Peter tried to get a fight pattern going, but it was too late. Venom kicked him backwards, beating the hell out of Spider-Man on the road, screaming in his face. Venom told Parker that he took everything away from him, and now he will take his life away. As Venom could give a killing blow to Spider-Man, Doc Ock emerged from the bridge, destroying everything around him. Ock yelled at Venom, "What have you done with my machine?" Thinking it was Spider-Man, Ock lunged a metal arm towards Venom, but the symbiote dodged the attack. Venom screamed at Ock, and Peter, who was down for the count, tried his best to get up, but couldn't. Venom fought briefly with Ock. Ock put up a good fight before Venom destroyed Doc Ock's arms. He kicked Doc Ock off of the bridge to an oncoming train. Where Venom was about to attack Spider-Man, he heard a laugh in the distance. Spider-Man told Ock not to worry. He used his webs to save him in the nick of time, pulling Otto back up from the bridge. Spider-Man webbed him up, tying him with webs. Venom turned to his right side to see that it was the Green Goblin of his own world. Remembering Peter's memory, Goblin should have been killed. This confused Venom, but he knew that he had time to think before they were teleported away. Peter was shocked to see that he was okay. He looked around, seeing creatures, people trapped in locked cells. Parker was surprised that he was back in the Sanctum Sanctorum. Peter asked what was going on before Doctor Strange approached Peter, explaining that ever since they messed up the spell earlier, everyone who knows Peter's Spider-Man from other universes have been leaking through this world. Peter was shocked to hear it, but it was confirmed when he saw 3 people in cells. Venom, Lizard, and Doc Ock had been in their cells caught. Venom tried to break out of the cell, but to no avail. Doctor Strange ordered Peter to clean this mess up. The more he doesn't, the more villains could wreak havoc across New York. Like the original timeline, Peter would gain the help of Ned and MJ to stop the villains, before things got out of hand. Before they left, Venom taunted Spider-Man, explaining how he knows everything about him and that he took everything away from him. Otto told Venom to shut up before Venom lashed out, saying that he was a dead man laughing. Revealing that Spider-Man also killed him, Venom told Otto that he remembered Spider-Man destroying his machine at the docks and then killed him. Ock couldn't believe it, but deep down he knew that it must have been true. Venom knew every detail about Peter's life in his own universe and took advantage of this by manipulating them to join him. Peter said that it wasn't true before he left in his inside-out suit to hunt the following villains. While at the Sanctum Sanctorum, Venom told Otto, "You want to kill the spider, we want to kill the spider. Together we can break out of here and do it together." Otto smirked. While Spider-Man dealt with Electro and Sandman, Norman Osborn has regained control of himself, smashing the Goblin mask before walking away. Learning of Peter Parker and a new universe, Osborn went to feast. Spider-Man has taken in Sandman and Electro like the original timeline with the help of Ned and MJ. Strange was glad that most of the villains have been dealt with, but he still needed to find the one who was on the glider near the bridge. This time, before Otto could explain to Peter, Venom told Peter that the man he seeks was once murdered in cold blood. He told Peter that he could try and hunt down a ghost, telling everyone in the room that Spider-Man had killed Green Goblin with his own glider, manipulating the story again. Venom said that if everyone wants to live, they need to join him and kill Spider-Man to reclaim what they once lost. That is going to be it for part 1 of What If Topher Grace's Venom, the 2007 Venom, had been in Spider-Man No Way Home. If you guys would like to see a part 2, do make sure to subscribe, like, share, and turn your notifications on so you and your friends are all up to date with latest content. Part 2 is in development, and let me know where you would like the story to go. That being said, have a fantastic day.